Oh, Sunday night. Welcome, everybody. Sunday Night Football about to kick off. That means we've got serious game face Heath Cummings. Welcome to the show. Recapping Week 13. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and whatever I just called him. Serious game face Heath Cummings. What's up, serious game face Heath Cummings?
I think Kyler Murray was probably the biggest winner this week. He, healthy enough to run, averaged 6 yards carry almost, ran it 10 times. Looked 100%. We can stop worrying about Kyler Murray at least until the next injury.
So that's serious game face Heath Cummings. Dave, do you think John Harbaugh did the right thing? Would you have gone for 2 there?
I understand his rationale completely. It's the end of the game. They just scored a touchdown with 12 seconds left. They're down by 1. Their secondary was beat up. Marlon Humphrey left the game. It sounds like it's a serious injury. He didn't have enough faith in his defense after a long, tough game to put them back out on the field. So he went for 2. And if Mark Andrews had just caught that football, he would have looked like a stinking genius, but he didn't do it. Yeah, I would have done the same thing given the circumstances. Don't forget that the offense just drove right down on Pittsburgh. So that Steelers defense was gassed itself.
Looked like Andrews stopped. Looked like they were not on the same page, those two.
Maybe a little.
Yeah. It's a close game and really exciting finish. At the same time, the Seattle game was finishing up. That was exciting. Gerald Everett did his best to keep the 49ers in the game, but ultimately the Seahawks prevailed. So great finish to a really fun day. Huge performances from Jonathan Taylor, not a surprise. Tom Brady, not a surprise. Stafford with another big fantasy game. Lamar Jackson, on the other hand, wasn't. Heath says that Kyler Murray was the biggest winner. Dave, who was the biggest loser this week?
I'll name Lamar Jackson, who looked really bad until the final drive of the game, and then he started to play a little bit better and a little bit looser when they had to hurry things up and just pass. But I think he only has 4 games this year with more than 20 fantasy points, and he did a nice job running the ball this week, but passing, really not till the end of the game.
Yeah, he's just one of the several players that have a very uneven distribution of statistics throughout the year. He's had 4 blow-up games. He's like the quarterback version of Terry McLaurin. He's actually had 3 blow-up games, but and a 24-point game. And a lot of duds. I mean, as you said, you just said it, right? 4 games of more than 20 points all year for Jackson.
Right, and that includes a 24-point game. And I believe it's now 3 consecutive games without 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, 16, 10, and 19 in non-decimal 6-point per passing touchdown leagues for Lamar. Yeah, what is going on? You know what? Every time I see him, he's got defenders all over him. He's running
right. So the offensive line's definitely an issue. He also hasn't quite played the same since he got sick. Remember when he missed? Well, he had the one bad game, and then I believe he got sick. That was the Tyler Huntley game.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, hasn't really looked that great.
Right. So that was Miami, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, or was Miami before that? I think Miami might have been before that. Right.
Right. And then they're at Cleveland next week. So maybe a bounce back chance.
Heath, what say you about Lamar Jackson? You can't sit him, right?
Believe it or not, Lamar Jackson is a sit in week 14 against the Browns.
Who would you have? You could have Herbert maybe.
Cousins?
Right. So, like, if I'm calling him a loser, I don't necessarily mean that's it. I'm done with Lamar Jackson. Get him off my team. It's more like I feel like I got to weigh what my options are, and I can't just blindly start him.
Well, I'll give you some quarterbacks who are, potentially available, right? Or not, or you have both, right? You got Roethlisberger at Minnesota on Thursday. He's got 20 or more points in 3 of his last 4 games.
No.
You've got Cam Newton against Atlanta.
I can't do it.
It might be close.
Taylor Heineke. Really? It might be close. Wow. Taylor Heineke against Dallas.
Can't do that either. I'd start Lamar.
Taysom Hill at the Jets.
Might be close.
Is he playing? For sure playing?
Playing.
I think I've learned my lesson. I would say that that's really close.
Got the mallet finger, though,
Ryan?
I
remember him. All right.
Me too.
So those are winners and losers. Winner Kyler Murray.
I do want to say, just because these types of things in my brain drive me crazy. So on a game by game basis in our FFT league, where I believe Dave set a scoring record with like 199.6 points, you couldn't get to 200, you big loser. Lamar Jackson has scored more than 20 fantasy points 7 times this season. So
right.
the whole he hasn't
because he has a couple of 20-point games.
He hasn't topped 20 but 4 times, except in decimal scoring where he's done it 7 times.
Okay, so fine. So make it 21. How many times has he topped 21?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Really?
22? 1, 2,
now
3.
We are to the 4.
Yeah.
Four games. 4 games with more than 22. But that's like, I think it's important to recognize when we use those arbitrary endpoints, if it's because he has 3 more games right at the number that we're saying. It's a much different story, those 2 narratives.
What we're trying to get across is that he's only had 3 big games this year, and he's had a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
So,
but a quarterback who had only reached 20 fantasy points 4 times would be much, much worse than what Lamar Jackson has been. In my opinion,
he has only reached it 4 times in non-decimal.
He's exceeded 24 times. When you include decimal scoring, he's a little bit better. I think we should. Really I think we should try and get everybody on the same page to commit to decimal scoring.
I agree. I have to get better at.
I mean, everybody in the chat, everybody who listens to this later, everybody who watches this later, basically everybody that plays fantasy football, every commissioner should say, "Okay, it's time. Let's go to the decimal."
Yeah. All right. I agree, and I really should as a host as well. It's much easier. It's just easier to give the round number, because if I start saying, well, in his last 3 games, he has 11.7 and 21.6 and 14.8 point, it's just a lot, I think, to digest. But, point taken. All right. Join our Facebook group. You can talk about decimal scoring till the cows come home. You can talk about cows. Search Fantasy Football Today on Facebook or click on the link in the episode description to chat with other fantasy fans. You can ask start-sit questions. You can talk through trade ideas, dynasty, whatever it is. Fantasy cops, that kind of stuff, all that and more in our Facebook group. Search Fantasy Football Today on Facebook. Run through the news and notes. Adam Thielen left in the first quarter with an ankle injury, and he had 1 catch for 0 yards. They have Pittsburgh next week on Thursday, short week, so may not see him in week 14. Elijah Mitchell left. He came right back, thankfully. He was evaluated for a concussion, came back. Joe Burrow, I don't know if he dislocated his pinky or whatever, but it got a little messed up. He was in pain. He played through it, but he struggled. To be fair, he struggled before that too. Defensive end Joey Bosa for the Chargers. He left in the first quarter. They've got the Giants coming. They don't need him for this next week. Logan Thomas left in the fourth quarter. What a shame too, because
I think it was bad too. He was crying on the bench.
Yeah.
So it stinks for so many reasons. He's been hurt, and from a fantasy angle, really looked like he was had a good chance to live up to this guy's got an amazing schedule. You have to pick him up. He could win you your league hype. Because yet another tight end caught a touchdown against the Eagles, and 2 of his next 4 matchups were going to be against the Eagles.
Might be Ricky Seals-Jones time again.
Or John Bates, yeah.
Or John Bates. Kenny
Golladay left in the second quarter with injured ribs. He came back. Do we have a snap count? We got a snap count on Golladay. I think he was
I'll get it for
in
you.
and out. But
Give me 35 seconds.
No cracked ribs for Golladay. All right. Mike Glennon, Giants quarterback, suffered a concussion. So we'll see if they get one of them. He played about half the snap, a little more than half the snaps. Golladay, 38 snaps.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Shraggy B. That's all Shrag.
B too.
Shraggy B. So anyway, Giants could be on their 3rd string quarterback next week, or Glennon, or maybe Jones. Who knows? Corey Davis left with a hamstring injury. Tyrod Taylor left in the 3rd quarter. Davis Mills replaced him. They get Seattle this upcoming week. Jalen Waddle left in the 4th quarter with cramps. He's fine. He's awesome, by the way. Miles Sanders left in the 4th quarter. Jason Kelsey, their center, left with an injury. They have a bye coming up, so we're expecting Hurts back. Sanders looked really hurt, but we'll see what the situation is after the bye. A few more. Kenyon Drake left in the first half. Pretty early, and Jamal Adams left with a shoulder injury in the 4th quarter. Seattle's safety, their pass defense has been so good, and they did it again. Another big game against Ayuk, or they limited Ayuk. Most of his 55 yards were on, I think, the very last drive, or at least the final quarter, and when Adams was out.
100%.
And Emmanuel Mosley, top cornerback for the Niners, really good. Has not allowed a touchdown this year, according to the broadcast. I think it was a Fox game. He left in the first quarter, which you would have thought probably would have helped Metcalf a little bit more. And finally, Jacksonville center Brandon Linder left with an injury. Heath, there were a couple of big swings and misses in this game. They were swings. They were fantasy point swings for the quarterbacks in particular. Jamar Chase could have had a long touchdown. He dropped it, ends up being an interception. Gerald Everett could have had a short touchdown, but just a few yards. He dropped it, became an interception. Really dramatically changed the games for Russell Wilson and Joe Burrow and Everett and Chase for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the only flub up for Everett. He also fumbled on a
twice.
Well, what's that play called though? The little shovel pass kind of. Yeah, at the goal line. Miserable day for him. You wonder, because coming into this game, and he gets a bunch of targets in this game too, I guess, but coming into this game, Gerald Everett actually led the Seahawks in targets since Russell Wilson had returned. This is the type of performance that could change that MO and make you not want to throw the ball to Gerald Everett anymore.
Yeah, his fumble almost cost them the game. And Schrager, what do you got here? -3, what is it? -3.3 fantasy points for Everett in non-PPR. And I think he had 4 catches, so he just barely beat the 0 line in full PPR. But yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase with another bad game, but it could have been all made in one huge play. And that was an 8-point swing for Wilson. And with the yardage, probably a 10-point swing for Burrow with those drops that became picks. Let's do some fill in the blank. Here we go. The best rookie. I'm actually going to change this. The top 2 rookie wide receivers rest of season will be blank. In what order?
I think Waddle's got it. I think Waddle's probably first. I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anybody else.
Waddle doesn't play next week, right?
Waddle's out. Oh, yeah. You know, we should probably do it per game because Waddle's got to bye, and Elijah Moore really has to be part of this discussion as well.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith has a bye next week as well.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to say Moore.
All right, so go ahead, Heath. Give me
Chase and Waddle for me.
Chase, Waddle, Moore, Smith for Heath.
Yeah. I'll say Waddle, Moore, Chase, Smith. Open the door, leave the wine out. Here comes Elijah.
Now this is per game because he's got the bye and Chase doesn't. You're really going Elijah Moore over Jamar Chase?
I'm impressed with. I was waiting for this to happen. I just didn't know if it was going to happen against Philadelphia, especially where Zach Wilson leans on Elijah Moore, and he was doing it even before Corey Davis got hurt. He had the first touchdown of the game. It was very clear once you got toward halftime, third quarter, that Elijah Moore was going to be the big target, and it should be. Heath nailed it on the show this morning. He's the alpha receiver. I didn't disagree with that. Moore's a very talented guy, and he left numbers on the field. I think he dropped another touchdown.
It was off target. Yeah,
it was open.
Right. It did hit his hand, but yeah.
Hopefully, there's a lot less of that coming from Zach Wilson. I was a little bit more encouraged with Wilson's play today than I had at any point this season, and I think that's what Elijah Moore needs. And now, fantasy managers should be able to look at Elijah Moore and say, okay, back to starting him pretty confidently as that worst number 3 receiver.
Okay. So, Heath, you feel still Chase over Waddle. Would that be, let's do per game. How about per game?
Yeah, I think per game, I'd probably just barely go Chase over Waddle. You said it. He missed the long catch in this game, but he still got 8 targets. I still believe in Burrow and Chase, and I think he's going to snap out of this little funk.
Okay. Waddle has had 8 or more targets in 6 of 7 games with Tua, 7 or more catches in 6 of those 7 games. And Parker, I didn't know how much Parker played. He played 48 out of 69 snaps. He'll probably have a higher snap share. And I don't know if we could even find this out, but how much did he play before Waddle left briefly with the cramps? Anyway, I guess that's the only thing that could throw him off would be Parker and Fuller. But at this point, I don't know. He just seems so perfect for what Tua likes to do. He's just crushing it. It's beautiful. All right. A great performance. I am not buying rest of season is blank. Does that make sense?
Right. Somebody who did well today that is an aberration.
Yeah. What do you got?
I mean, I would start with Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've seen it before from him. Tons of targets, bunch of catches, had the game-winning touchdown for the Lions, and then the next week he completely vanishes. So I'm not ready to get excited over St. Brown.
Okay.
Who's another rookie receiver? Am I willing to get excited over Mike Williams, who put together probably his best game in his last 5 weeks? Just overall, he was involved early, had a little bit more of the short passes. Herbert had a great game. He got off to a great start before that offensive line disintegrated toward the middle of the game. Am I buying him? Probably still going to look at him as a number 3 receiver.
Mike Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but St. Brown, well, we can talk about St. Brown because Heath, you had him as one of your winners. Dave says he's not buying it. Heath, to what degree are you buying Amon-Ra St. Brown, who went over 100 yards and had the touchdown? I'm sorry, he had 86 yards.
86 yards, yeah.
And catches.
As a flex, nothing more. I don't think anybody in this offense right now is much more than that. But I've thought for most of the season he was their most talented wide receiver. The Josh Reynolds thing puts a little bit of a hitch in it because of what Reynolds can do downfield. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is taking some of those targets that we thought were going to be the big increase in targets for TJ Hawkinson, that underneath stuff. And he is a very good route runner. So I like him okay as a flex.
All right. So a performance, what's my next one? A lousy performance that you are not buying rest of season is blank.
Can I go back to Thursday?
Yes.
Dak Prescott.
Okay.
I mean, come on. That's kind of an easy one. That's a low-hanging fruit one. So I'll come up with something better. I don't know if I'm believing that it's over for. I don't think it's over for Brandon Cooks. But a pretty disappointing day, despite the fact that his team was down. Huge score in the game.
Yeah, I think they had the ball for less than 20 minutes, maybe less than 19 minutes.
And maybe we should have a Saquon Barkley conversation.
Well, you tell me, are you buying this bad performance?
It was one of his best of the season, wasn't it?
It was, but I hate that he's not getting a ton of carries. And I
had 13 fantasy points.
I know. In PPR he did, but he didn't score. And non-PPR he was a total dud.
Average 5 yards per carry. I mean, what more?
Well, he was efficient as a rusher, not as a pass catcher. That offensive line ain't getting better. Quarterback play may have impacted him quite a bit, actually.
I think if you started Saquon as a number 2 running back, you got a number 2 running back stat line.
In PPR,
full PPR with 6 catches. Yes, I think that's
you got 12 points. I think you still expected more than that from Saquon.
Yeah, come on. Obviously, he was bad.
I do not expect much more than 12 to 13 from Saquon. No, this is about what I expect weekly.
Wow, that sucks.
It makes me sad, man.
Well, I mean, does someone else expect a lot more from Saquon still?
No.
Okay.
I don't think people should, and that's the problem.
It's just going to matter. It's just going to depend on if he scores. He probably has a PPR floor though of 10 to 13 points.
Yeah, he's right in that Myles Gaskin range.
Oh, he was awful.
I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah, that was such a bad game, man. Heath, you have a bad performance you're not buying rest of season?
Darnell Mooney. I think that he'll bounce back and still be a good borderline number 2 wide receiver rest of the season. The terrible matchup.
Let's look at the Cardinals schedule here. Can we just sit number 1s against the Cardinals now? Can we just make it official?
Depends on who they are.
It's been the best of the best, literally. Cooper Kupp. Next week it's Kupp again.
Next week it's Kupp.
Yeah, I'm not sitting Cooper Kupp, so I guess the answer is no.
But I might do it in week 15.
Detroit. How about Michael Pittman week 16?
Depends on what they look like.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to be in that number 3 boom bust number 3 wide receiver range that we love so much.
Your 12 PPR points. Your fantasy championship, Amari Cooper, week 17.
He's not the number 1 wide receiver for the Cowboys.
He will be. They are great against slot receivers too. Oh, okay, fine. CeeDee Lamb, starter.
You're starting him.
If I'm in my fantasy championship, CeeDee Lamb's going to be in my lineup.
All right. Last fill in the blank. Terry McLaurin is blank. This is coming off a 3-catch for 22-yard performance at Las Vegas. Terry McLaurin is blank.
A number 2 wide receiver.
A number 2 wide receiver that I will reluctantly start, even with all the horrific performances. One of our daily viewers of FT did not start McLaurin. She tweeted me and she said that I didn't start him. I'm so glad I didn't. I said, that's great. Congratulations. What did you do instead? She said, well, I had Javonte Williams and I just used Williams in my flex. And I said, wow, you've got a bunch of great players on your team. You're lucky, but a lot of people just are not that lucky who invested in Terry McLaurin with a top pick way back in August. So at this point, I still feel like there's too much upside to absolutely shut him down. Now, if he were playing Arizona, I could be convinced not to use Terry McLaurin. And if McLaurin had a really tough matchup, and maybe we could say that Philadelphia could be one of those tough matchups, but they've got Dallas, Philly in their next 4 weeks. I'm going to start him probably in all cases against both those teams.
I think Philadelphia is absolutely a tough matchup. And by the way, I don't know how much you were able to watch, but in the fourth quarter, at least, it really looked like Darius Slay was shadowing Elijah Moore. I know Moore's touchdown on the opening drive, if you want to call it that, it was a very short drive, was not on Darius Slay. But I think by the end of the game, they were putting Slay on him. But I think McLaurin is going to run into a lot of Darius Slay in 2 of his next 4 games. I don't know that's going to be such a great finish for him. And yeah, the Eagle. And this is a great performance from Elijah Moore, given that this was one of the toughest defenses for wide receivers. I'm kind of all over the place here, but I'm talking about the Eagles. So, as it relates to McLaurin and Elijah Moore. All right, let's do the winners and losers. Heath, your winners are what are you laughing at?
Nothing.
Come on, you could laugh at me. It's fine.
No. Russell Gage, Kyler Murray, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. We already talked about Kyler and Amon-Ra, really keeping this moving along. Russell Gage, 12 targets, caught 11 of them for 130 yards. I think he still has really, really low downside, but he's kind of stabilized a little bit into what we would have expected Russell Gage to be in this offense if there were no Calvin Ridley. And I think we have to view Gage now in that borderline number 2 range in full PPR moving forward.
So could you make I'm sure you could make the case, but would you be starting Russell Gage over Terry McLaurin going forward?
I probably won't this week. But it's possible that next week, if McLaurin's going against Slay, I have him higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Kyler Murray and Amon-Ra St. Brown were the other winners. And like Heath said, we already got to those. So Dave's winners, Devonta Freeman, Russell Wilson, and Van Jefferson. Let's start with Freeman. 14 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown. 5 catches for 45 yards. He now has scored more than 12 PPR fantasy points. Double-digit fantasy points in 5 of his last 7 games in PPR. So just giving you something there. But this is a really good game for Devonta Freeman, Dave.
It is 68% of the snaps. I believe that's toward the season high for him. 2 of 3 snaps from 10 yards or closer, 10 of 16 on 3rd and 4th downs. Tyson Williams is no longer a factor. He was benched. Latavius Murray looks like a slug. This is their best running back. Tony Romo even commented it on the broadcast. He looks like he's going backwards in terms of, youthfulness and the fact that he's got some spring in his legs. I think the Ravens have got him. I think the Ravens understand that he's like that as well. So there shouldn't be any more questions about him. I think he's a number 2 fantasy running back until further notice.
Freeman or Barkley?
Barkley.
If I was so sure that Freeman would get 4 catches a week, I'd say Freeman. But I'm not.
But you're not.
So it's going to be a close call between those two every week. For week 14, who am I going to take? I've got Saquon against the Chargers. I mean, that's a win. I got to take Saquon, even though Freeman's taking on the Browns. I got to play that matchup.
I don't know about. I mean, he's not. Who was the matchup last week? It was the Eagles. And
for Saquon?
Yeah, their run defense is terrible.
Sure.
I don't know if it's terrible.
Their run defense, the Eagles. I mean, it's usually,
right.
It's fine.
Well, he had 13 carries for 40 yards against Philadelphia. By the way, Saquon Barkley has had more than 13 carries once in 7 games, not counting the Dallas game. One time he's had more than 13 carries, and it was 16.
Are you like enticing me into a victory lap or
Twice,
just stating fun facts?
Is it once or twice? I think it's once. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean victory lap? What is with you in the victory laps? You need to exercise? All you've been doing is taking victory laps.
You're just giving all these negative Saquon Barkley stats, and you're just tempting me.
Oh, please. All right, Dave. Also, Russell Wilson. How much confidence do you have in him after? Look, it was a 20-point game, but it should have been 28. Gerald Everett cost him 8 points.
I thought this is the absolute best that he's looked since coming back from the finger injury. Very encouraged by it. I hope that offensive line can start to play a little bit better. More importantly, they got a semblance of a run game going between Penny and between Adrian Peterson. So it's not going to be this one-dimensional offense that's going to get them in trouble. He plays at Houston next week. You're going to start Russell Wilson and feel pretty darn good about it.
Are you guys going to pick up a Seattle running back?
I'm interested in stashing Rashad Penny. Ran with good burst and power, good combination. I'm sure he'll get hurt at some point between now and the end of the year. But until then, I don't mind stashing him on the bench and seeing what happens. He led the team in snaps in week 13. 40%, I think. He didn't have any of the high value ones.
Yeah,
Not many. I shouldn't say a lot. I think he had 2 snaps inside of 10 yards. But 2 other Seahawks running backs had more. AP, Travis Homer.
Peterson was the goal line back, just like he was in Tennessee.
Yeah, he got stood up a bunch, though, too.
Yeah, he scored once. It's basically all he can do, I think, is a 1-yard run. Van Jefferson, Dave. So it's another inefficient game. 8 targets. He caught 6 of them. That's great, but only 41 yards. And he's usually around 40, 50 yards because his drops are killing his stats. But he did catch a touchdown. So frame this here. You call him a winner. He was 65% started. What do you think about Van Jefferson?
You should feel good about starting him as a flex or a number 3 receiver. There might be some weeks coming up where he does make the top 24. I love the target volume. Stafford's playing fine. And I think Van Jefferson could end up being ranked. I had Odell higher this week. Odell played fine, played like a number 3 receiver. Jefferson played a little bit better.
Yeah, I had Odell
Jefferson
as a
being
loser
ahead moving forward.
And Adam tried to bully me into moving him out of my losers after he scored a touchdown. But he caught 2 passes for 28 yards on 5 targets. Odell is a loser.
I put him back in there. He's back in.
Yeah, he's I think he's just like right now you have to view him in that same Mike Williams boom bust flex range where you're just hoping you hit it on the right week. One more week where he saw 8+ targets, and I would have kind of bought into the idea that Odell Beckham's going to be a number 2 wide receiver rest of the season. You can't really believe that right now.
No, and I bought into it after last week. I thought that the connection was there and that this was going to end up being a thing now, Stafford to Beckham. And it really wasn't. And I don't know how many snaps he played. That's probably something I should look into. There were a couple of high leverage situations where they were near the goal line and Beckham did not play. It looked like he was not on the field. That's something I can check out real quick.
Just ask Schrager, man. Schrager's on it. Schraggy B will beat you.
Let's see if he does.
Go ahead. Oh, it's a race. Who's going to get
the
count first?
I got it. The Rams played 66 snaps. Odell played on 34. So one of the big topics that Heath and Jamie discussed on the show this morning, I didn't buy into it, was that he would be limited and on a snap count. Sure enough, he was.
What was Jefferson versus Beckham?
I took Beckham. The fellas took Jefferson.
No. Snap count, I meant.
Oh, okay. 34 snaps for Beckham out of 66.
And 53.
Jefferson had 51. Cooper Kupp at 62.
Oh, Schrager says 53. All right. See who I saw.
He's looking at it.
Okay.
These are counting the 2 kneel downs, so it's fine.
The kneel downs. Okay. Let's take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the losers, which includes Odell Beckham. And who else? Lamar Jackson, we already talked about. Kyle Pitts, we got to talk about him. It seems like he sponsors the losers segment. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Time for your losers, brought to you by Atlanta's Kyle Pitts. Okay. So, Dave, your losers were Lamar Jackson, Darnell Mooney. Yeah, Heath touched on that. He said that's a lousy performance. He's not buying. It was 5 catches, 27 yards against the Cardinals. This was after 2 straight games with 121 or 123 yards. Okay. Anyway, your thoughts on Darnell Mooney? What kind of a loser is he? He's at Green Bay next week.
That's part of it, is that the matchup against Green Bay is one that I'm going to be nervous to trust him in. If it's Justin Fields coming back from the rib injury or Andy Dalton coming off of a 4-interception game, I think it's going to be difficult for him, especially if he doesn't get crazy volume to be good, to be considered a reliable fantasy receiver. He's got Minnesota the week after that. I'll probably buy back in then. And then at Seattle in week 16, not an easy matchup.
Not at all. What is the update now on Seattle? They've given up like 1 touchdown to a wide receiver in their last 8 games.
Something like that. But George Kittle had a pretty good game against them.
Oh, tight ends and running backs kill them. Wide receivers, they're great against. It's now 1 touchdown to a wide receiver for Seattle in their last 8 games. It was Jamal Agnew. And that's just not an easy matchup for wide receivers. Now, if Jamal Adams misses time, that could change things, certainly. But just something to keep in mind if you see your wide receiver has Seattle on his schedule. For Mooney, Heath, how much does the Allen Robinson absence matter? Because his 2 100-yard games came without Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely matters. It's the difference between him being a number 3 wide receiver and a number 2 wide receiver.
Okay. Dave, Kyle Pitts, 78% started, 4 catches, 48 yards on 7 targets. It's not that bad, I guess.
For a tight end.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
What?
A lot better than Foster Moreau.
That's not. Yeah, it's great. He's better than a bye week replacement.
I mean, he's better than Zach Ertz.
He's better than him too. But you know what?
Mark Andrews
wasn't what I wanted when I started him. Heath Cummings. I wanted somebody who had a better shot to
you
score.
Started him. I thought you were telling me
5 or 6 catches. He was a low end starter, but 8 PPR points. I would like more than that from my ballyhooed rookie tight end. And he had, I believe, I don't know how many targets he had in the second half, but I think at halftime he had 4 for 48. So I went into halftime and I saw his stat line. I thought, okay, great. This is going to be the week he starts to pop off, and I'll look stupid for saying that you should consider another tight end. And then he went catchless the second half.
Yeah. You know, one thing I hadn't really brought up enough, Matt Ryan's pass attempts. He got up to 41 today. His previous 5 games, his high was 30. So probably, and it's not like they were winning and running the ball out. You know, he was throwing so much at the start of the year. His pass attempts were way down recently, but they came back up today and he got to 297 yards. So even with 297 yards, only 48 for Pitts.
Yeah. I just there's so many bad tight ends every week. He's still getting a bunch of targets and air yards. I'm going to keep starting him.
He had 2 second half targets. Did he have any red zone targets today?
Was he a bigger loser than Pat Freiermuth?
Yeah. Freiermuth wasn't great either.
He had 3 for 26.
And a 2-point conversion.
2-point conversion.
Not look, that just salvages him. Neither one was great. And neither one will be a tight end that anybody will confidently start next week.
Well, how many tight ends can you confidently start? You know,
at least 6.
That's true.
Not next week because Goddard's on a.
But one of them ain't going to be Kyle Pitts.
Losers: Beckham, Boston Scott, and Laviska Shenault for Heath.
Boston Scott.
Or Boston Scott. Well, you know, he wasn't the only one. Darrell Henderson was active and didn't get a snap. And what do you have to say about Boston Scott, Heath?
Well, I guess since Miles Sanders is hurt. If Miles Sanders stays hurt, then Boston Scott's probably somebody that we can't drop until we know that Miles Sanders is okay. But he's just a decoy, I guess. Like they said, they didn't care that he didn't practice when he was sick because he's a veteran and he knows what to do. They had him return a kickoff, so it wasn't a health thing. They just didn't want to play him in this game. But if they don't have Jordan Howard, they don't have Miles Sanders, they may not have a choice. They may have to play him. So you can't drop him quite yet, unfortunately. That even makes him a bigger loser almost.
You don't think it was a health thing? I know he returned a kickoff, but
he returned a kickoff.
But that doesn't mean that it wasn't a health thing. I guess they could be punishing him for fumbling and costing them the game last week, partially costing them the game. But
I think he missed a lot of practice, and that could have been part of the reason why they didn't want him to play. He played 3% of the snaps before Sanders got hurt, and then after Sanders got hurt, he played 0% of the snaps.
it could be the missed practice thing, but I believe it was Nick Sirianni specifically who said I'd be okay with him playing despite missing the practices because he's a veteran.
Yeah, but it was also Sean McVay who said, we expect Darrell Henderson to play. We expect Darrell Henderson to play. Made him active, and he didn't have one touch the entire
we knew,
game.
like we had news before kickoff that he was going to be active and basically not play.
I didn't remember seeing that news. I thought it was pessimistic, but well, we started Sony Michel anyway, so
we
go
did.
us.
We're gonna get beat by 30 points anyway. So
yeah, but tiebreaker points. Laviska Shenault. I mean, why? What else is there to say about him?
He only got it's one thing to get 9 targets and turn it into 40 yards. It's another thing when the targets fall to 5 and Laquan Treadwell is outperforming you. And I watched a little bit, and I've come to a determination. And this could change by next year because next year is his 3rd year in the NFL, and you shouldn't really judge receivers too much until you get to that 3rd year, like finally. But he is not a good wide receiver. He is bad at playing wide receiver.
Almost just spit out my water. I was not expecting that. That was a hot take.
That is what. No, I don't think it's a hot take, really. If you look at his statistics and his career, I don't think he's good at playing wide receiver in the NFL currently.
Okay, Chenault's only 38% rostered. Marvin Jones, I think, is still in the 85-86% range. Free up a roster spot, people.
Right, you're never going to use him. 83% rostered, 38% started.
Yeah.
Cool little reflective thing going on with those numbers. Yeah.
Listen, I have a secret to fantasy football that I'd like to share with everybody. I don't remember if I've already done this, but
is it don't start any Jaguars receivers?
No, it's don't make this a point in when you're drafting, but if you have maybe a tiebreaker scenario, drafting players with late bye weeks is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of fantasy managers that have given up at this point, and you might just run into one. I ran into one this week in one of our leagues. I ran into one last week in one of our leagues, and I lost to him, and that was Pete Briscoe, who started Michael Carter. And my team sucked so bad I lost anyway. But there are a lot of people that just are not setting lineups this time of year. I know you're not one of them if you're listening, but it's a fantasy reality. So late bye weeks, I think you can get away with it because people have quit, unfortunately. All right. Now, if you have played...
Don't be one of those people, by the way.
No, don't be. Playing one of those leagues where you penalize people for it, then you could ignore it.
You don't have to go hog wild on the waiver wire when your team gets to 8 losses or 9 losses, but set a lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Don't leave somebody like Eric Kendricks in your lineup when he's ruled out at 11:30. When there's a specific rule in that league about starting players who have been ruled out, and you've complained about the commissioner starting players who have been ruled out.
By the way, I'm probably going to win.
Congratulations. Good job.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Dave. You guys have to hear what Jamie and Chris, more so Jamie, were so wrong about something. I'm not going to say my side of it. I'm just give you a scenario. Let's say you have saved up your fab. You're in a fab league and you get to the playoffs and you know your opponent really needs a quarterback. What if you used all of your fab basically to pick up every available quarterback? Is that fair game? Is that a jerk move? How do you feel about that?
Total jerk move.
It's a total jerk move, but also if you there's 2 different things here. One is using all of your roster spots and rostering all of those quarterbacks through the games. That is completely and totally legal. The other is picking up quarterbacks and then dropping them so they'll stay on the waiver wire. That is completely illegal, and those players should be taken off the waiver wire and made available as free agents.
Right. That's the right move for a commissioner to make, is if some bonehead does that.
But if you want to hold 6 quarterbacks on your bench for the week, jerk move, completely legal.
How is it a jerk move? It's not a jerk move. It's a smart move. You're rewarding yourself for saving
lots of smart moves in life that are also jerk moves.
I don't agree. All right, fine. You know what? We debated it thoroughly on Saturday's mailbag. If you want to go back and listen, Fantasy Cops. Colts 31, Houston 0. Let's go to our believe it or nots.
Believe it or not, we just shouldn't start any Texans.
You need to amend this to be, believe it or not, we shouldn't start Brandon Cooks. And now that Davis Mills could be coming back under center, maybe I should amend what I said earlier about Brandon Cooks. Maybe we shouldn't feel so good about starting him. I think you've got to lower expectations.
In terms of wide receivers that you're frustrated with, right? Let's talk about where he ranks. So let's throw McLaurin in there. I'm still going to put Mike Williams in there. I finally sat him, and of course he goes off. Brandon Cooks.
Oh, I wish you had told me that before the week would have started. I would have ranked him in the top 15.
Brandon Cooks. All right, so let me give you 4 wide receivers. McLaurin, Cooks, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman. How would you rank them?
McLaurin, Pittman, Cooks, Williams.
I think it depends on what the format is. Because Pittman's going to be higher. Like Pittman's still a startable fantasy receiver in full PPR, probably in half PPR. I feel like now with yet another quarterback change, and the Texans are just so sloppy, I think Cooks has to be last on the list.
Carson Wentz going into his bye, and then he gets New England the following week. So you're not starting him for the next few weeks.
May we all be so blessed to play against the team that has Jonathan Taylor in fantasy next week.
Amen to that. Gosh, you knew he was going to have a huge game. 32 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. Next game, Chargers 41, Bengals 22.
Believe it or not, Jamar Chase is no longer a must-start wide receiver.
If I'm loaded at wide receiver, yes, I can find a path to sit him down, but I've just got to be absolutely loaded.
I still think he is. Boy, I don't like his schedule.
And his quarterback might have a broken pinky or something.
All right, can I amend it? Believe it or not, T. Higgins is a better start than Jamar Chase.
Not amend it. You have to answer the original question, and then you can do a second question if you would like.
I don't think he is a must start. I think
okay.
I'm nuts, but I don't think he's a must start.
Okay.
It's 5 straight games without even 13 PPR points. When you look at T. Higgins, you have to think 13 plus PPR points. And Jamar Chase had 2 drops. I could see myself starting Higgins ahead of Chase.
I would not start Higgins ahead of Chase, but they are both number 2 wide receivers for me. I'm starting both.
Are you starting both with the assumption that only one can have a good game?
No.
How many more weeks will both have a good game from Burrow?
2.
Schrager, let's get a poll going here. Chase or Higgins rest of season. And all right, anything? Yeah, there's got to be more from this game. This was an exciting, fantasy relevant game. So I guess we should probably just, instead of mentioning Mike Williams, talk about him. 100-yard game. I believe he had 2 catches of 40-plus yards.
Yeah.
In this game.
I would like really, and this is debatable, but I don't really feel like this game changed anything.
Yeah,
look, he has the catch of Mike Williams. He's a boom bust number 3 wide receiver.
Right. 5 catches for 110 yards from Mike Williams.
I like that he had multiple good plays in the game.
You know,
first time in a while since he's had more than one good play.
The other thing,
and I like 7 targets.
Every week, though, he gets a target inside the 5-yard line. He had another one.
Right. Last week he did not.
Yeah, but really, yeah. Okay, that's it for this game. Unless you want to, no, let's talk about Burrow. 18 or fewer fantasy points in non-decimal scoring. 18 or fewer fantasy points in 3 straight games. I'll just say 3 bad fantasy games in a row. How much faith do you have in Joe Burrow? Let's assume he's healthy. Let's assume he's healthy. How much do you have faith in Joe Burrow? San Francisco, Denver, Baltimore, Kansas City next 4 weeks.
No.
He'll be a borderline number 1 fantasy quarterback until that offensive line gets healthy.
I think I've had him outside of my top 12 each of the past 2 weeks, and I don't anticipate he will be inside the top 12 against any of those matchups.
Philadelphia 33, Jets 18.
Like, I'm starting Lamar Jackson over him, regardless of matchup still. So
yeah, I would too.
Believe it or not, the Eagles should start Gardner Minshew after their bye.
How about this? It took us 45 minutes to finally get to Gardner Minshew. Heath, I don't know how you could restrain yourself for that long, but
I
am
sent some
proud of you
tweets
for
to
it.
Pete. Yeah, I sent some tweets to Pete throughout the afternoon just to release some of it. But yeah, it's
Did he write you back?
No, Pete didn't. Pete didn't comment.
He had some things to say about Gardner Minshew today.
Yeah, he didn't. I'm sure he did
liked.
not like the way that he played. He'd much rather watch Sam Darnold or somebody. But no, I mean, phenomenal effort.
He was great. He was great. There's no complaining about it. He was a good passer. He gave them a good passing game. And I don't know. I think Jalen Hurts is probably going to be healthy when they come out of the bye.
No, that's not the question.
So, what was the question?
Should they start Gardner Minshew?
No. The answer is no, because I think that Hurts will be fine coming out of the bye, and they'll just go right back to him against Washington.
Yeah, I'd say no. From a fantasy standpoint, I would, I know this is crazy because he had such a bad game, but Devonta Smith, anyone in the passing game, I'd rather have Gardner Minshew. You know, he threw for 242 yards. Jalen Hurts has not sniffed that in 5 games. Maybe once, but I don't think so. I don't think he's been.
So, Adam, what do you think the Eagles? You're Eagles fan, Adam.
I go Hurts. You go Hurts.
You go Hurts. Okay.
But if they didn't have a bye next week, say they're playing Washington next week, and Hurts wasn't at 100%, then yeah, I think Minshew, he's earned enough to get another start.
Yeah, Devonta Smith, 2 catches, 15 yards on 4 targets at the Jets.
Oh, that's terrible.
This guy, is he behind the other 4, right? We had McLaurin, Pittman, Cooks, Mike Williams. Would you start all of them? I know they have a bye next week, but just in general, do you like all of them better than Devonta Smith?
I think you have to say yes to that.
I don't know. Coming out of the bye, my suspicion is Cooks and Williams underwhelm next week, and Devonta Smith ranks ahead of them. But it may be determined by how they do next week. He's right in their neighborhood. The other 2 guys are definitely ahead of him.
It is pretty amazing that another tight end caught a touchdown against the Eagles. It was Ryan Griffin, 15 yards and a touchdown. Last thing here, I've been pretty impressed with Tevin Coleman. I started him 2 straight weeks out of desperation, and it's not like he's been amazing, but I'll take it. But next week against New Orleans, it's a no, right?
And then it's Miami after that. And then it's Jacksonville after that.
Carter, it could be back at that point, but.
And then it's Tampa Bay after that.
All right, can we just take it one by one? No, New Orleans, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, Arizona 33, Chicago 22.
This is a tough one. Believe it or not, you shouldn't really feel very good about DeAndre Hopkins as a number 1 wide receiver.
Believe it.
As a number 1? Yeah, believe it. But now I'm going to amend it. Top 18, 1.5.
I think he's going to be between that 18 to 24 range for me most weeks.
Until he shows signs that he's really healthy and really back to normal. I'm going to get a snap count on him too.
39.
Well, but that's the thing. Like earlier.
You already have it, Adam?
Yeah, 39.
Earlier in the season, he was performing solely based on touchdowns. He's not had a number 1 wide receiver's target volume or catch per game or receiving yards per game. He's just scored a bunch of touchdowns.
And he hasn't been a number 1 wide receiver per game. I took away the week against Green Bay. He played 25% of the snaps. So I looked at the first 7 games of the season. Hopkins was per game, I want to say 13th in non-PPR, 18th, maybe 19th in full PPR. But I have faith in him just to produce, one way or another. I'm never taking him out of my lineup. I'm sorry. All this talk about all these wide receivers is Hopkins is not one I'm sitting. Mostly because I don't have DeAndre Hopkins in any leagues. But if I did, I'd be starting him. Agreed?
Agreed. But I still think that the Cardinals have kind of found their way into becoming a more run-friendly offense than maybe what they had envisioned at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Which leads me to another believe it or not, which I'll give after Heath talks.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, do you have something to say about Hopkins in the offense?
Nothing at all. Go ahead.
Believe it or not, there's actually a little cause for concern with James Conner moving forward.
Because
Chase
Edmonds is coming back?
Yeah,
Edmonds is coming back?
Yeah, and he will cut into some of that work. I think it was, I'll get the official snap share for our guy, James Conner. 90%.
I think Conner had 8 catches before Chase Edmonds' injury. So, yes, I think there's some concern.
I don't like he's been a number 1 running back since Edmonds has gone down. The one thing I'm not sure of, and this will get me in some trouble probably with some of the stat people, but coming into this year in the offseason, I had sent something out about how, James Conner has actually been a lot better on a per target basis than Chase Edmonds. Are we sure Chase Edmonds is better than James Conner in the passing game? And everyone said, well, yeah, it's because he was playing with Roethlisberger and Edmonds was playing with Kyler. Coming into this game, James Conner was averaging almost 9 yards a target. Chase Edmonds was averaging less than 6. Edmonds has never been particularly good in the passing game on a per target basis. He looks like he is. He definitely looks like a running back who is good in that regard, but he's not particularly good at it. James Conner has been better.
Do the Cardinals realize that, or do the Cardinals dial back Conner so that he doesn't risk getting hurt?
Right. Do you still feel like even knowing that they're still going to use Edmonds in that role?
But I think it's a possibility that you mentioned the 8 catches he had before Edmonds went down. I think it's a possibility he gets more targets now than he did before Edmonds was hurt.
And more carries. Because Edmonds was getting a decent amount of carries. Might just be his backfield now. Well, at least the running downs. Okay, how do you feel about David Montgomery? Great game for Montgomery. 90 rushing yards, 51 receiving yards, 8 catches for David Montgomery.
He's awesome. He's awesome. Some of the moves he made in this game to evade defenders. I don't know how you watch him play football and come away with any other impression that he is very, very good.
Yeah, but he hasn't been that good for fantasy. And he's not, I would be shocked if he has a game like this receiving wise if Justin Fields is back. So, can't sell high anymore. But do you feel like this is the pinnacle of the season for him, for David Montgomery, or can we get another strong league-winning finish?
He just scored 28 fantasy points. I think it's probably the pinnacle. That's probably the top.
I don't mean it too literally. I mean, you know what I mean. What do you expect rest of the season from David Montgomery?
I don't expect 8 catches. I don't expect 51 yards. He came into this game with 12 receptions for 103 yards. So he really boosted those year-to-date numbers. And I don't think that's going to happen again. Although it would be smart for the Bears to lean on him in that regard and to teach Justin Fields to dump it off to him, use him in the pass game just in general. That would be also a great way to maybe take some carries off of him and using him on the edge. I don't think he'll have a chance to get as seriously hurt there versus between the tackles, but I can't count on him to have a game like this again. I don't think anybody benched him this week either. So enjoy it. It's great. But moving forward, he's still going to be a running back who you're going to need a touchdown from for him to have a top 12 finish.
He's pretty much in the set it and forget it category for me. He's a number 2 running back that I'm starting every week.
Okay, Tampa Bay 30 and Atlanta 17. What do we got?
Believe it or not, Rob Gronkowski really is a top 2 tight end.
Top 3.
Well, I think after this week he'll be number 2.
So
he passed Andrews.
I think the answer to that question is yes. How many people out there have to make a decision on Gronk or Andrews every single week at this point? It's got to be a small percentage.
Well, but there could be people with Gronk and Kittle or Gronk and Waller or Gronk and Hawkins.
Sure, but Gronk ahead of pretty much everybody. You've got a decision to make if it's Andrews or Kittle. Even with the game that Hawkinson had both last week and this week, I'm still going to start Gronk ahead of him.
Let's talk about Cordero Patterson because everyone's starting Gronk. Anything? Well, do we have to? Anything to say about him?
We have to.
He's really been the running back. He's not as much in the passing game the last 2 weeks.
I believe this was his first full game without 14 PPR points at minimum since week 1.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, kind of a bummer, but still I don't mind it. I'm still going to start him.
96 total yards, 3 catches for Patterson, and 78 rushing yards against this run defense, which didn't really show up today. We talked about Pitts. We talked about Gage. You know about Tampa Bay. Start their guys. Detroit 29, Minnesota 27. Woo! Great defense at the end there. What a game. Heath?
Believe it or not, Jamal Williams was a mirage and is a flex at best until DeAndre Swift returns.
Let's see who they play next week, because I think the matchup plays a big role. It's Denver next week. I'm still going to like playing Jamal Williams as at worst a low end number 2 running back. So I don't believe the flex talk.
I'm with you. I don't either, but like 70% of the people in the poll did.
People are really ticked off.
Very discouraging. The thing that bugged me, and that will have me projecting him much lower next week, Godwin Igwebuike was the 2-minute back, and he was the third down back. And I think Jamal Williams only had 1 target and only caught 1 pass. So he did not get the role that I expected, but he still had 17 carries, 18 touches. They've scored a lot of rushing touchdowns. He'll be the goal line guy. You should still start Jamal Williams if Swift is out next week.
He played 48% of the snaps. Just an absolute bummer of a stat.
40, that's not good. Yeah.
But I think he had like 60% of the running back touches.
Yeah. This is really disappointing.
60. I think it was way more than that, right?
Was it?
Well, he had 17 carries and 1 catch, so that's 18. Jefferson and Igwebuike had 7 carries and 2 catches combined, 1 catch combined.
So 70.
Yeah, that's 66%.
Okay.
Right. That's still a lot. I was surprised that 41 passes for Goff and 296 yards. Really good game for him, by the way. That only 1 catch.
3 touchdowns. It's amazing for Goff.
And Hawkinson.
How many times was he sacked, by the way? Just twice? 3 times?
I'm not sure. 3?
Yeah.
I don't know if this matters to you, but Hawkinson, 2 weeks ago, he became the 3rd tight end to catch a touchdown against the Bears, and today he became the 2nd tight end to catch a touchdown against the Vikings. So good for him.
Yeah.
Miami 20, Giants 9.
Believe it or not, you need to hold Devontae Parker through the bye.
Nah, I think you can get away with it. I don't think you have to.
The wording I don't like, so I'm gonna say don't believe it, but
I think you need to.
He's not a bad guy to hold through the bye.
He faces the Jets in the first week of the fantasy playoffs. Wow. I do not want to put that out there on the waiver wire. As mostly good as he has been all year long, whenever he's played, he should be very healthy. They'll be coming off a bye facing the Jets. I want to start
the Titans in week 17 too. Sure. But he's also got the Titans in week 17. So 2 of those 3 matchups in the fantasy playoffs are going to be good. Trusting him is another story. If you need roster space and he's someone who's on your bench, maybe he's on your bench for a reason. And if you let him go, maybe to pick up running back that's out there, maybe Jordan Howard's out there, somebody like that, I think he's droppable.
Jordan Howard's on a bye this week.
I know, but which would you rather carry in the fantasy playoffs? A bench receiver or a bench running back? Which guy would you rather? Like, let's say Miles Sanders is out for the year, God forbid, but it might happen. And Howard could be back after the bye. I think I'd rather have the running back on my bench.
Well, that's a slightly different story, but my point was that I don't view Devontae Parker as a bench receiver coming out of his bye. I think he's going to be a starter in week 15, and so that makes him a hold.
Mike Gesicki did have 11 targets. He had 7 catches for 46 yards, and he had an almost touchdown. It got targeted in the end zone, couldn't quite come down with it. As far as the Giants,
it hit him in the face?
It did. Giants defensive back Aaron Robinson made a pretty good play to kind of, it might have gotten a fingertip on it, but it did kind of hit Gesicki in the face. For the Giants, I mean, do you care about rostering Galladay, Shepard?
No.
Right. Yeah, they're bad. All right, Rams.
I'm holding on to Shepard in one league.
Yeah, when Shepard is cleared, there should be a mad dash to the waiver wire to go pick him up.
Right, assuming that Jones is the quarterback at that time.
Rams 37, Jacksonville 7.
Woof.
Believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about these. Like, believe it or not, James Robinson's not a must-start running back.
The only reason why I would believe that is because this coaching staff treats him poorly. Yes, he had a fumble early on. That means you're really going to put him in the doghouse and give Carlos Hyde more work? You really believe that much more in Carlos Hyde after everything that James Robinson has shown you this year? That tells me that the coaching staff cares more about sending a message than they do putting their best talent on their on the field to try and win a game.
What if he was hurt, though? What if it was an injury situation?
If it was an injury situation, then the coaching staff is doing the right thing, but I don't know if that's what the case is.
He got benched the week prior because of a fumble, and there was a big hubbub in Jacksonville because they asked Urban Meyer about it, and he said he didn't know what they were talking about. And then the next day, he came back to the press conference and said, I asked why he was benched, and it's because they thought Carlos Hyde had more juice.
My goodness. They're blind.
So, yeah.
Prune juice, maybe.
Yeah. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I don't think he's a must start. You're definitely starting David Montgomery over him. I'm definitely starting Saquon Barkley over him. I think I'm starting Devonta Freeman over him.
I'm not definitely starting Saquon. I think in full PPR, I'm definitely starting Barkley over him.
Yes.
Yeah, and by our Twitter poll, let me just update you because I'm going to forget. 53% would rather have Jamar Chase. 46% would rather have T. Higgins. So very close.
Kind of close.
Yeah. Also in this game, do we think next week, let's say Darrell Henderson is, good, ready to go. What does the backfield look like? What is the split?
My gut says it's still going to be a lot of Henderson.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking the other way around, but all we have is gut right now because I think it's close enough as well as Michelle played and as many times as Henderson has gotten hurt. I think there's genuine reason if both these guys are healthy to question it.
Oh, please don't be the Patriots.
I don't think it will be the Patriots. I think they'll have a guy.
It really has never been that way for them.
Right.
Our next game, Washington 17 and the Vegas Raiders 15.
Believe it or not, Antonio Gibson is going to be a top 12 running back rest of season.
Believe it.
Yeah, I believe it.
Great belief. Strongly believe.
They got to keep winning.
Believe it or not, Josh Jacobs is going to be a top 12 running back rest of season.
I don't believe it.
I think he'll be close, though.
Especially with Drake hurt and kind of maybe seriously hurt. I cannot wait until February or March, the first time I get to say to Adam, when Adam talks about how bad Josh Jacobs has been the past 2 years, to say he's been a top 12 running back each of the last 2 years. What are you talking about?
Yep.
9 catches.
At least this year he's doing it differently. It's not all touchdowns and you cross your fingers that he gets enough carries. The 9 catches and the 9 targets, outstanding. Love to see it. I hope he
signed a third down back. They on the broadcast today.
Somebody like Kenyon Drake.
He's not a third down back. I mean, that's the thing. And he was taking catches away from Jacobs earlier. On the broadcast today, I don't remember who was calling the game. They said that Greg Olsen. Oh, it was actually Greg Olsen, the tight end, former tight end, was saying that Greg Olsen, the offensive coordinator, said that the Raiders are better pass blocking than they are run blocking. And it's hard to judge Josh Jacobs. They are a really bad run blocking team. So
Jacobs' touchdown was an excellent run.
Great play.
Really good footwork.
All right, I'll victory lap here since Heath has been doing that for the last 2 weeks. I told you were too high on Derek Carr. That was crazy. You can't trust him without Waller and obviously Ruggs. 11 points. Come on. But at least Mariota. I don't think Mariota got in.
Mariota played. He didn't do anything statistically.
Hunter Renfrow is at least if Waller's not there, he's an absolute
awesome. Yep.
All right. Pittsburgh 20, Baltimore 19.
So we already did the Lamar Jackson one, which was I think we did Najee Harris last week.
Ooh, do a Chase Claypool one. Do a Chase Claypool one.
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to believe it, but believe it or not, Chase Claypool is a boom bust number 3, just like Mike Williams.
I think he's worse than Mike Williams.
I think he's better than Mike Williams. I think I'm really mad at Mike Williams.
Yeah, you hate Mike Williams for sure.
Yeah.
I had to pick one for the rest of the season. It's Williams.
Was it 3 targets for Claypool? That was bad.
3.
Was that like NBA Jam?
No.
3.
That's NBA Jam.
Yeah, Claypool, 2 catches, 52 yards. He's basically the same as Mike Williams, I guess.
Yep. I don't think he gets as many targets. Not consistently, anyway.
I don't know. I mean, you're talking about Mike Williams before this game was getting about 5 or 6 every week. Am I wrong about that? I could be wrong.
No. I mean, last week I think was... I'd have to double check it. I don't have every stat on the forefront of my mind, but I can look at the Steelers' receiving stats. And Claypool did have 9 and 8 coming into this week. But before that, there were a lot of games with 5 and 6.
Almost entirely been, and this was a weird game that they won, but it's almost entirely been that Chase Claypool gets a bunch of targets when they lose and almost no targets when they win.
That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
How many passes did Roethlisberger throw today? He threw 31.
The problem is, in using that logic, you would have started Chase Claypool this week.
But you even said it, that everything on paper felt like the Ravens should win this game, but it was Ravens Steelers. It was a desperation game. It was at home. You even said,
and they almost lost.
And they did almost lose. Yeah. All right. Claypool is what he is, number 3. And do you guys, I mean, Roethlisberger is probably playing a little bit better lately. Give him a little bit of credit here. And like I said, 20 or more points in 3 of his last 4 games. You start him at Minnesota next week?
Probably not.
It's a short week game. Makes me nervous.
All right, last game here is Seattle. Yeah, Seattle 30, Seattle 30, and San Francisco 23.
Believe it or not, Tyler Lockett's better than DK Metcalf.
Been ranking it that way for a couple weeks now.
I believe it.
What?
I believe it.
I think I've done this, believe it or not, like maybe 5 times over the last 3 years, and Adam's never said, I believe it. He's always stood by his man.
Well, I believe DK Metcalf is a better wide receiver than Lockett, although I think they're both excellent, but just not working. It was really close today. He had a couple of almost touchdowns in this game, but I just
loved the route on the Lockett touchdown. I guess he was pretending like he was blocking, but he did some little breakdown thing in front of the corner and then took off behind him, and Russ just threw it up in the air. Lockett ran underneath it. It was a beautiful touchdown. Looked like old school Russ and Lockett.
Mm-hmm. It's just such a weird year. It's like I've got this team with Marquise Brown and DK Metcalf, and I can't sit them. My other options would be Devonta Smith, Chase Claypool, Odell Beckham. I think a lot of fantasy managers are in these situations. Sure. Yeah, start sitting DK Metcalf. He's not producing. Who are you going to sit him for?
Right. You don't have a guy.
Elijah Moore.
That would be a guy that you could consider. I don't know if I'm ready. You know what? I'm not ready to say, yes, you should start Moore ahead of Metcalf, but I'm also not ready to say, oh, that's preposterous. He can't do that.
What about Brandon Ayuk?
Same thing.
Yeah, with Debo out, I think I probably would.
George Kittle had 181 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How much yak? That he was freaking incredible in this game. One of his best performances. So many broken tackles. What a beast he is. And then on the San Francisco side, Eli Mitchell had every carry by a running back.
Matt Breida had like a 25-yard carry that was called back because of a hold.
Breida?
Matt Breida?
No, Jeff Wilson.
Yes, he did.
Jeff Wilson.
Well, they called it back. They wanted Mitchell to have all the carries.
Yeah.
So they held. Okay.
And he left the game. He left the game for a little bit with a concussion. He had to get checked out.
He was not the leading rusher in this game.
Travis Homer. Yes, if you're looking at the box score, Travis Homer had a 72-yard punt.
73.
73 yard touchdown run on a fake punt. You don't get DST points for that, do you?
No.
Right. But you know what's really annoying is that it's going to screw up San Francisco's ranking against running backs.
That was a running play from a running back.
Yeah, but that's an Azer stat. Like, I'm removing it. All right, let's get back to Javonte Williams week. We are done here for tonight. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. What is this comment here? Football is missing something, not entertaining anymore. Did you watch football today? It's not missing anything. It's amazing. It's the best.
Awesome finishes to some of the late games.
Football is the best. Every sport sucks except for football. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Sorry about your Knicks.
Yeah, it's exactly
and your Yankees.
Okay. We'll talk to you tomorrow. It'll be me, Chris, and Jacob on the Monday show. Also, check out Fantasy Football Today in 5 for Dave and Heath and Shraggy B. I'm Adam.